Hello folks, this is Alex, and today I have a unit of Hoplites to show off to you. So what I'll first do is I'll provide an overview of the new unit. I'll discuss how I put it together and what made it so difficult for me to get this base done. And then I'll talk about some Numidian Archers here that I've just made, provide you a little overview of them as well. And finally, I'll discuss a tabletop game I've been playing recently, and it's not going to be what you expect. So let's get these Romans out of the way. And here we are. Here we have the new Libyan Hoplites, or Libo-Phoenicians. There are 33 of them. First rank has 12 men in it. Middle rank has 10, and the final rank has 11. Now they're packed in there pretty tight. I built these guys off primarily two kits. So let me show you those. They are the new Hoplite kit. This one here, which came out last year. I used this primarily for the bodies and for the spear arms. And then I used the Libyan spearmen here out of the Warriors of Carthage kit for quite a few of the guys in the second and third rank. And I used the heads as well from the Carthaginian citizen infantry kit. So those are the three Victrix kits that I used primarily. And what I was going for here was an armored, tough-looking unit. So you'll see every single guy in here has armor. Typically the linothorax, the linen armor. So this is a tough core of infantry. These are not pushovers for the legions. No, these are semi-professional men who know war. Now the context here. So in case you aren't aware, I am building a model Carthaginian army in 28 millimeters. As you can see, I've already got quite a few units done. I've got the Carthaginian veterans in the back. I use this channel to share my hobby and get feedback and engage with the community. That's why I post these videos, and watching YouTube videos really got me into the hobby in the first place. And I've been working on this this army for about a year, and this kit for about a month now. And I've been in the hobby for about 2 years now. So I'll talk more about my basing strategy later, but as you can see, I like to put a lot of guys on a single base. So I've got 33 here and 27 here, all on a single base. I like the way it looks when all the models are together on one base. I position them intentionally to give the unit a certain feel, a certain character in and of itself. Right, so it's not just about the character of the individuals, it's about the character of how they all rank up together and look. So that's what I'm trying to do. I've been thinking about Hoplites ever since I began the project. They're such a characteristically cool, awesome, ancient formation. I mean, it's kind of like a glorified spear wall, but still it has a certain mystique about it. And they were very successful historically for a while there. So that's really, I've been thinking about doing this for a long time now, and I'm glad to see it right in front of me, all completed. Now let's talk about the materials and the methods that I used. 3 of these figures are about a year old, while the rest are brand new. I painted the figures here in batches of about 3 to 5, and I'd pick the color of the tunic first, the armor, if you will, the linothorax armor. And it'd be a shade of brown in this case, a few blues in there as well. And I kept the coloring for basically everything else the same, to keep things simple. Sometimes I varied the strap color and the sheath color on the swords, but the spears, the metal, the bronze helmets are almost all the same. And the colors that I used are here. So Vallejo model colors, I used these for, oh, I missed white. I definitely used white on this as well. Here it is. Use those 5 primarily from the Vallejo range. This is for the tunic and the belts, the sandals. Skin color, use Pro Acryl. Sleeves, I used this nice dark blue, dark grayish blue. For the metals, I used the Pro Acryl's metal range here as well. So the 2 silvers, there's a dark silver and just like a light silver, and also the bronze. This is the bronze color that I use quite often for these ancients. And when it came to washes, I washed these figures. I used just the simple strong tone and soft tone from Army Painter. So I guess that is 7, that's 12 paints. A lot more than I thought it would be, actually. It's funny how the paints add up quickly. I thought it was a pretty simple paint job, though. Most of the diversity in the color is coming from the shield transfers, as you can see. And yeah, there's some variability in the helmets as well. So that is the paint job. Comes to the base, I used the Geek Gaming basing material that was recommended to me from a commenter, and it's been a great find. Really appreciate that. I picked up some desert pre-mixed mixture from that site, put it on the base, colored it a little bit, added some tufts. Simple, easy does it. Okay, now let's talk about why this was such a difficult project for me. I really packed these guys in tight, as you can see. I was going for a very dense formation. This is easily the densest I've done before on my units. So the closest comparison here would be these Gauls here. So I got 11 Gauls in the front row here. But that density that you see in this formation does not extend all throughout the entire unit. And this is a much deeper base than I have here for my Libyans, as you can see. For my Libyans, I have 12 guys in the front row. Well, before for the Gauls, I only had 11, so that's one more. So, when it comes to my well-spaced disciplined infantry, I like to do them in 9x3, like these guys here that I showed earlier. I also have Romans lined up similarly. So you have a clear 9x3 formation, easy to put these guys down. You still need to be mindful of, how the spears match up and making sure that they're gripped in fashion such that you're not poking the guy behind you. So you have to think about that when you assemble the miniatures, but it's nowhere nearly as difficult as it is to pack these guys in so tight here. So it's not a bad thing that it was difficult. It was just a difficult project. And it was difficult for, I think, three reasons. One is the planning aspect. So each row needed to be, each row of miniatures, they needed to be standing properly, holding the proper pose and gripping the spear in the proper fashion. And that all had to be planned out. And the miniatures that were appropriate for this had to be identified to make sure that you're not building miniatures that you can't even use. So as you can see here, especially in the back row and in the middle row, these guys are standing with their left shoulder forward and the spear in overhand grip and pointing downwards, almost always, such that the spear is not impaling the guy in front of them. And if there's a few exceptions, they're treated specially, like this guy here. He had to be fit in specially, such that he's not poking the guy in front of him with his spear. So I put him here on the wing and assumed that, you could see that this guy's back end of the spear is very close to this guy's head, and he's actually pretty well shielded from the front. So I'm imagining that part of the job of the guys in the back row is to make sure that they're not getting impaled by the people in front of them from the back of their spears. And I think that's a very reasonable thing to assume everyone was actually looking out for when they were in these dense formations, minding the spear butts in front of them so they're not getting hurt. Okay, so the planning aspect. So I had to assemble this dense formation. I had to assemble the miniatures with this dense formation in mind, modifying hand grips and shield positions. So fresh out of the box, that Warriors of Carthage kit, the Libyans come looking like this. And I might do a relaxed posture for hoplites in the future, like this guy here. But I wasn't looking for that here. I was looking for an attacking posture. And what you can do is you can modify it, such that these guys are gripping their spear a little bit more aggressively forward. But this doesn't quite give the right posture that I was looking for. So, because you see he's just kind of facing the enemy with his chest forward, and the spear is not angled downward, so he's not going to rank up well. He's going to be hitting the guys behind him with the back end of the spear. And if he's in the second and third row, he's going to be impaling the guy's hand in front of him. So it's kind of hard to rank up in this posture. So what I did, and you'll notice that's generally true of all these guys in the middle ranks, is, I turned the head and did some surgery, angled the arm and the hand in some cases such that the spear was pointing downward, and the shield is kind of resting on the left shoulder of these guys in the middle, as if, it's just kind of hanging off their shoulder. And I think it actually works. It works well when they're ranked up here. You can't tell, and it doesn't look unnatural when they're ranked up like this. Even though if this is on perhaps a single miniature, it might look a little weird to have that shield just kind of hanging there. But I think it works just fine in a dense formation like this. Another thing about the planning aspect, so I used the Greek Hoplite kit here, of course, and what makes these units Carthaginians are the helmets and the shield transfers. And the helmets only sort of, some of the time, are distinctly Libyan or Carthaginian. And some of these helmets, like say this guy's helmet here, that easily could be for any Hellenized infantry. That guy could easily just be a soldier fighting for the Ptolemies or the Seleucids or something like that. And that's okay, because there was a heavy Hellenic influence on the Carthaginian army from this period. The unit was also very difficult to put together because of the difficulty in dry fitting all of these miniatures to make sure that there was enough room and you had enough diversity in the shields and that everyone was just spaced close enough together such that you could actually execute and make sure that if you put glue down, you weren't doing something that you didn't want to, that you didn't regret. And just dry fitting, I'll show some pictures of this, but dry fitting and then laying these all down carefully. So I did the first row, of course, and glued them on, and then applied the basing material with just a partial row put down so that I could get access to between the legs easier, get my brush in there so I could put some PVA glue down. And that whole process, every single time you nudge the unit, you had to kind of fix it a little bit so you get that spacing right. And it was just very technical from like a finger control perspective to get these all in pretty close by. And I didn't really have that problems with the galls, even though the galls are pretty close packed in as well. I think maybe it was because the shields for the galls rank up nicely because they're nice, tall, and sort of rectangular here. That's probably why the galls used them. Also, they're boss script. I mean, they're just a different type of shield, of course, but they ranked up, these guys ranked up, I think, a little bit better. It was a little bit easier to dry fit these guys than it was to dry fit these hoplites here. So just, yeah, the technical aspect, that was difficult. And finally, the third reason why it was really difficult is, which is a related point, is that each one of these figures I posed carefully to, communicate the character of the unit to make sure they're all pointing in the same direction in the same way. No one was getting stabbed in the back. It was difficult just to make sure that the orientation of each individual miniature was communicating what I was looking for. And I hoped it worked out okay. There's still a few cases that, a few errors that I made, but I think they're kind of blended in, and I'm not going to point them out to you. And I'm sure you can find a few errors that I made here. But for the most part, I think the formation is great. Now let's talk about the character of the unit. So the unit is led here by this fellow in red, right smack dab in the middle of the formation. And my favorite interpretation of the unit is that this represents the last stand of Hamilcar Barca. So that's the father of Hannibal. He was a man of war, fought his whole life, played a key role in the First Punic War and in the Mercenary War afterwards. And really, it sounds like, based on our sources, that he set up and rejuvenated Carthage's position in Spain and helped really pave the way for Hannibal and the Barcid family generally to dominate that area and for Hannibal to have such success with against the Romans in the beginning of the war, at least. So he kind of plays a similar role to Hannibal as Philip does to Alexander. It's not a perfect analogy, but there's definitely some similarities there. And yeah, I'm probably not the first person to have thought of it. I'm pretty sure I've heard of this before anyway. But anyway, he, according to Polybius, died fighting a tribe in Iberia, which is not named, and was described as a very ferocious tribe. And this here might represent that last stand of him with his core of troops trying to hold back the tide before they're overwhelmed. And you can see there's a certain bending here of the line, almost as if this unit is getting enveloped by a bunch of sword-wielding Iberians. So he met a grim end, but I think it matches the unit quite well. So 3 men in the front here, these 3 standing up upright. They're not very incredibly closely spaced together, but they are positioned right in the front, right in front of the commander, and these are supposed to be the champions of the unit, the bravest men who are not flinching, are not cowering behind their shield like some of the guys here on the right and the left. No, these guys are standing firm, standing in the front, with very heroic looking shields as well. So they're some of my favorite guys in the unit as well. Now, these guys, to my mind, I mean, they look like they could serve as Carthaginian heavy infantry from like the 4th century BC. They almost look classical, like, you know, classical hoplites. And I mean, they came from that kit, of course, right? So, but it's very typical to portray Libyans, certainly at like the beginning of the Second Punic War, as armed in this fashion, like hoplites, basically. So, you know, what I mean by that is that they've got these strapped-on shields. They're large circular aspices, fighting with these long spears as their primary weapon, as opposed to fighting more like the Romans, who have the boss script shield and primarily fight with javelins and swords. And according to Polybius, they switched equipment at some point, and you know, this is basically like an older version on the left of my veteran troops here on the right, who look much more like Romans, and I even spaced them out like Romans. So anyway, Adrian Goldsworthy says that, hey, that's what, you know, the Libyans, apparently this is how they were armed before the campaign went on in the Second Punic War, and they were re-equipped like Romans. So, and you know, it's very common for war games miniature companies like Victrix to portray Libyans as looking, you know, essentially like Greek hoplites. So that is why they look the way they are. And briefly, here are my Numidian Archers that I completed as well. So I've just got 4 of them here. And these are taken from the Victrix's Greek Archer kit. And all I did is add some heads from my Numidian Cavalry kit and plopped them on here. And they turned out pretty well. I used the same painting scheme here for these guys as I did for my Numidian Cavalry, which, if you'll remember, or you actually don't need to remember, I'll show them. Here they are. These are my Numidian Cavalry here. And I'm using the same paint scheme here, so I used a speed paint as the wash over the tunics. And I think that base actually turned out quite well. But anyway, here are the Numidian Archers. It's very easy to make them, even though Victrix doesn't make a dedicated Numidian Archer kit. And I will make Carthaginian, perhaps, or Punic Archers in a similar fashion. And I'll show those off at some point. Okay, so finally, let's talk about the game that I was going to tell you about. So that is Halo Flashpoint. I've been playing that with my buddy for a couple of weekends now, and we're both big Halo fans, you know, growing up playing in high school. We always went over to each other's houses and played Xbox together. So I had to pick it up because I thought it'd be a lot of fun, and it has been fun. I've, as I said, played a couple weekends, and you know, my friend, he's not the sort of guy who would play tabletop war games like this, you know, rank, understand. He doesn't have the same obsession with historicals and you know, the time period as I do. So, but Halo, that works just great for them. And the miniatures are 32-inch scale, and I haven't painted them yet. I haven't found the time. You know, it's easy in this hobby to overextend yourself and think that you can just add some extra figures, you'll paint them, you'll get them done, and it'll be no problem just adding that to the list of things you have to do. But I just haven't found the time yet. I'll get to it soon. It's an actual set of miniatures that I'm using, right, for a game, so I should have a much more impetus in order to do it, but I just haven't done it yet. And it'll also offer me a chance to use some colors and maybe super saturate and get the armor all glossy, because it's kind of science fi figures, so I'll do that. Also, my daughter, kid number 1, received Uno for Christmas. It's just the right level for her. She understands the concept of winning, but she does not really understand the concept of competition. So she doesn't understand why it's important to hide her cards from everyone. I guess you'd say she lacks a theory of mind, which is just fine. It's very cute. She's only 4, of course. So that's what's been going on with me. Hope everything is going well with you folks, and have a good day.